Hello and welcome to the Fuel Run Recover podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, registered dietitian, running coach, marathon runner, and mom. This season, we're breaking down running's biggest trends, hot topics, and myths, and turning them into practical nutrition and training advice you can actually use every day. Let's get into it. Hey runners, before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you a quick question. Have you ever wondered if your nutrition is actually helping your running, or is it actually holding you back? If you want to find out, I've created a brand new free resource just for you. It's called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a super quick checklist that's going to help you spot the signs of underfueling, low energy availability, or where the gaps in your nutrition might be that are impacting your recovery and actually slowing you down. It only takes a few minutes to go through, and by the end, you're going to know whether or not your fueling is on the right track, or if you really need to start making some changes to the way you approach your eating so you can start to feel stronger on every run, reduce your injury risk, and actually get the results that you're training so hard for. You can grab your free copy right now by clicking on the link in the show notes. Again, this is called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a free downloadable resource, and it's going to give you so much clarity on how you can start feeling smarter and running stronger. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel Run Recover podcast. Today we're doing a little bit of a quick, I'll say more off the cuff kind of episode. Although whenever I say it's going to be a quick episode, I end up talking for half an hour anyway. And all of the episodes are the same length no matter what. So I don't know why I bother saying that. But today I want to talk about why you aren't meeting your nutrition goals. So why you might be struggling to hit certain nutrition targets, why you're finding it impossible to hit the numbers that you think you're supposed to be hitting, and what are some of the common mistakes that I see runners making with their nutrition strategy that is making it that much more complicated or that much more challenging or sometimes even impossible for us to meet all of our goals. And so this episode came about because, literally every single day on the internet, if I open up all of the different apps, everything, one of the most common things that I've been seeing lately is people looking for help, advice around, how are people getting 170 grams of protein a day? How are people reaching 200 grams of protein a day? How are you guys all meeting these fiber targets? Like, what is everyone eating to get that much fiber, that much protein? Like, how is everyone making this work? And the comments back or the advice back is always widely varying. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But I see this struggle from people of like, okay, I finally feel like I have a good plan. But when I look around me and I look at the food choices or I look at my macros or, whatever it is that I'm tracking, I'm just not seeing how this is supposed to come together. Like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be eating to reach these nutrition goals. So today I want to break this down. Like, what are some of the most common mistakes that I see that is preventing a runner from reaching their goals? To kind of give you a little bit of some insight into where maybe you're going wrong, maybe you are kind of overlooking certain things, and then how can we like make the math a little bit better? How can we kind of make it all happen? Because like, I'll just say, like, when I make meal plans for people and like I have tools and resources that I use in my business here to create like calorie and macro and micro calculated meal plans, right? Very specific, very personalized. And like when I do that, like I typically don't have a problem getting the targets met and everything. And of course, I know I am a professional with well over a decade of experience doing this. But it is doable, right? It is doable if we're not putting up these barriers for ourselves that are maybe unnecessary. So the number one reason that I see people struggling with reaching their nutrition targets, whether that is protein or fiber or getting in enough of certain vitamins and minerals, the first reason is that you are trying to stick to a calorie target that does not allow you to meet your nutrition goals, right? Your calorie target is too low in order for us to reach the nutrients that we need to get in, right? Because foods that have protein, right? Protein is calories. And so unless you are only eating protein, we can't be on a 1000 or 1200 calorie diet and meet our protein target as well as everything else. Like, just as an example, 1200 calories would be 300 grams combined of like protein and carbs. That doesn't even allow for any fat whatsoever. So like, if you're trying to eat only say 1200 calories or less per day, you just can't get in enough food to allow for you to get in enough protein, enough fiber, enough vitamins and minerals, right? And this is why we often warn against long-term restrictive low calorie types of diets for most people, again, unless you're like incredibly petite and incredible, very small frame, very small body size, maybe not very active, that sort of thing, then yeah. But by and large, for most people that are, of a certain size, for people that are of a certain activity level, right? The runners here that I'm talking to on this podcast, that low calorie amount is going to get you into trouble in so many ways. And so, like, we need to get in enough calories so we can get in enough like food and then nutrients. Otherwise, we're just like trying to live on shakes and the protein bars and the protein wraps and like the things with all the really high amounts of these added nutrients in them, because our ratios are just not accurate. So the biggest thing again is like just the calorie target is too low. We have to rethink, we have to readjust the calorie goal to be a little bit more appropriate for you and your needs. We can't just say, okay, stick to this like really low calorie goal, but like jack up your protein and jack up your fiber and jack up all your vitamins and minerals, because like it just doesn't work. It just, you can't do it, right? The second thing, and again, like this is just coming off of so many years now of low carb being the like overall prevailing thought, right? And like if you have been on this earth as long as I have, you've seen like how deep the anti-carb rhetoric and sort of belief system runs. And it's not even like it's not even that a lot of people are walking around like actively not promoting carbs anymore, or like, hating on carbs the same way. But I feel like it's so ingrained in so many of the people that I work with that like there is this fear and this like discomfort with eating more carbohydrates, even though like we know logically that carbs are good, carbs fuel performance, they're not bad, they don't cause weight gain. Like we can kind of nod along and we can agree with that. But deep down internally, there is definitely still this concern, this fear, this thing we have to overcome in order to more readily or more likely hit our targets for, again, things like fiber and other micronutrients. So the second big mistake that I see people making is that you are not eating enough carbs to meet your fiber goal. So then we're having to get like really creative with some of these different food products that are on the market these days, trying to find ways to get these big quantities of added fiber from food versus just like getting them from the whole food sources that we're like, supposed to get them from. Now, is there a time and a place for like having added nutrients to our diet? Like, of course there is, right? I'm not someone who is really that militant about saying, no, we can like never ever have like added protein, added fiber, added vitamins and minerals in any of our foods ever. Like, I'm not so far onto the like whole food only kind of thing. But if the idea is that like, oh, I have to eat these wraps that have like all of this added fiber, or I have to like drink this beverage that has this added fiber, or I have to like have all of these sort of concoctions and different things in order to have a hope of meeting my fiber goal, like that to me is a sign that our carb target, like how many carbs we're trying to limit ourselves to, is probably not enough, especially for you as a runner. And I'll just like say, like, if I'm making a meal plan for a runner and I put it together, like we're talking like 40 grams of fiber, no problem, right? And again, like this is me as a dietitian, like with all my experience and everything like that around getting more fiber foods in. And again, like not being afraid to make carbohydrates really a focal point of our diet. And then getting all of the quality nutrients that go along with that. But often it's that our calorie and or our carb targets are so unreasonably low that it's just feeling impossible to get in 25 grams of fiber per day, because like, how do you do that if you can't eat most things, right? Like if you're on a diet that is telling you that you shouldn't eat fruit, that you should like only have like maybe one serving of fruit a day, and it should probably be berries because they're lower in sugar than all the other fruits, and all this like absolute trash advice that is still floating around out there. Um, it's just going to be really tough. Or like if you can't eat potatoes, or if you're not supposed to have bread or pasta, right? Like it's very challenging to get in enough carbohydrates to get in enough fiber. And then, of course, all the vitamins and minerals that go along with that. So people are having trouble getting enough magnesium or enough vitamin C or enough potassium. Like it all kind of comes together, right? The quality of our diet matters a lot, because the fiber or the protein sodas or bars or wraps or all of these things, like they rarely have the same quality and depth of the nutrients that we would get from whole foods if we were relying more on whole foods. So calorie targets are too low, carb targets are too low. The third thing that I want to address with this and get into a little bit is that your nutrition targets that you're actually aiming for aren't the right targets for you. They're not accurate. They're not personalized. They are not the correct targets that you should be hitting. And I say this because, again, like in my line of work, I see a lot of really wacky stuff out there, a lot of crazy advice, a lot of, people giving recommendations or making meal plans, um, giving advice that either is not specific for runners and like is not good advice for runners as a whole, or for you as the runner based on your training volume, based on your goals, based on your body size, like the numbers that you've been given, right? Those targets that you've been given are just not correct, right? They might be based on what someone else is doing and someone's just passing along their goal targets and not, it's not personalized. Or maybe like the calculations and the math that they're using is not the right calculations or the right math that we should be using for these different approaches. So like, and I see this when people are, out there on the internet and they're asking for advice of like, how are people hitting 200 grams of protein per day? Now, I've been doing this a long time, and I have yet to have to tell someone that they, in fact, need to be getting 200 grams of protein per day. It's very, very unlikely that your target for protein is 200 grams per day, regardless of what you've been told. And I usually see this mistake being made for two different reasons. So the first reason that I see this mistake being made, that again, the protein target that someone's been given is just way too high. Like it's so absurd that, again, without literally just like drinking protein shakes all day long, like how are you ever going to have a chance of hitting that protein goal? Like it just would take up your entire life to try and hit that protein target. So if it's not reasonable or sustainable or realistic, or like would be crazy expensive to try and meet that target, like it's just not a good goal. But anyway, the first reason I see this mistake being made is because people are doing the calculation based on pounds of body weight, not based on kilograms of body weight. And so this is a little bit of like a metric to US conversion problem, where the nutrition guidelines for essentially everything, like all of our nutrition guidelines are based that are body weight based, are based on kilograms of body weight, right? The metric system. So we use grams per kilo. But the problem is that people will see this information and they won't realize that it's per kilogram of body weight. So they're taking a grams number, right? 1.5, 1.7, 2 grams per kilo. And they are doing that calculation based on pounds of body weight. And I see this all the time. And that's very easy fix. Somebody will come to me and say like, oh gosh, I'm supposed to be getting like, 200 grams of protein a day or 180 grams of protein a day. I'm like, well, actually, it's much, much lower than that, because the target you've been given is based on the wrong calculation, or based on the wrong metric. The other thing that I see is that people will be doing a percent calories calculation for protein. Now, we do for protein have something called the acceptable macronutrient distribution range. And so, protein as a percent of total calories for the day can be anywhere from 15 to 35%, 10 to 30%, 15 to 35, something like that. I should have looked this up beforehand, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. So a pretty low percentage of total calories up to a very high percentage of total calories. Now, I, as a second kind of check-in when I'm creating a meal plan for someone, will do the grams per kilo calculation first, and then I'll always double check it as like what's the percent of total calories. And if it's usually between like 20-25%, I'm pretty happy. But if you were to take a higher calorie target, like let's say you have you're a runner, you're a pretty high volume runner, you calculate your total calorie needs for the day, and then you know that you want to be a little bit higher protein, and so you take like 30 or 35% of that number, right? Like on the higher end of that number, you're going to get a really high number, right? Because it's not a personalized body weight specific calculation. It's a percentage of your total calorie target, when really the rest of those extra calories should be coming more from your carbs and from your fats, not from just like a way higher protein goal. Now, if you get in more protein, like that's fine if you like it and you want to eat more, and it's okay. But like there's a certain point in time where more protein is not going to have more benefit for recovery or lean mass or anything like that, right? There's a rate of diminishing returns here. And so like in some shorter term studies, they do find that there are benefits of very high protein targets. But again, it has to be like realistic and sustainable for the long term. So just because in a research study, they see that like in people with large amounts of muscle mass, right? Like competitive bodybuilder levels of muscle mass, there are benefits for building muscle or preserving lean mass when in a calorie deficit when they are getting in a much higher protein target. That doesn't mean that like we should all just be trying to eat that way forever, right? Because again, you just have to like live on protein powder and you're going to do it for maybe a couple of days or a week and then stop, and and all the guilt that goes along with not doing it. I don't know. We're not really doing anything valuable here, right? The other thing is that if we want to get one step even more accurate with protein targets, we can calculate protein goals based on just lean muscle mass, not a person's entire body weight, right? Because of the body weight we have, some of it is muscle and what we call lean mass, which is basically anything that isn't body fat. So that's like our bones, our organs, our muscles, all that stuff. And then we have our body fat. Now, protein, we don't need as much protein to maintain or to sustain body fat as we do lean mass, right? Our lean mass is a very big user of energy. It actually uses the vast majority of the calories that we require in a day is to sustain our basal metabolic rate and our lean mass. Our body fat does not require nearly as much energy to sustain it, so it's not as metabolically expensive. So we don't need as much protein, right? A person who has a higher body fat percentage versus a lower at the same weight would realistically have a little bit of a different protein goal. But because most people don't have body composition information, like they don't know their body fat percentage or their lean mass by pounds or by kilograms, not everyone has that information available. So we tend to do just weight-based calculations. If somebody does have that information, like if you have had body composition testing done, then yeah, for sure, like we can look and we can do a calculation that is more specific to that. But even if you have, even if you are at a higher body weight, like unless we're talking about competitive bodybuilding amounts of muscle, like your protein needs aren't going to be that high, right? Like they're not going to be well over 200 grams a day, again, unless we're talking about like a competitive bodybuilder type situation, which is not a population that I do a ton of work with, right? I'm talking to runners and endurance athletes. So when we're looking at these protein and fiber goals, or we're looking at any nutrient target, right, we have to address, are we getting in enough calories to even have a chance at meeting our needs, right? Or are we kind of like getting in our own way right off the bat by not having a calorie target that would allow us to reach these goals. The second thing is we have to address, is there an underlying fear or concern around carbohydrates? And is that preventing us from meeting some of these targets because we just aren't allowing ourselves enough carbohydrates in order to, again, even be realistic about getting there? And then the third thing is, are the nutrition targets that we're aiming for even accurate or personalized for us? And so I talked a lot here about protein and some of the mistakes that I see people making with their protein goals. But the other thing is with carbs, right? Like if you're a runner and you are trying to eat under 150 grams of carbs a day, or even under like 200 grams of carbs a day, right? Like if your carbohydrate target is that low and you're doing any amount of running, again, you're probably this is not going to be the right number for you. This is going to get you into some trouble with low energy availability, low carb availability, and again, just not being able to check all the boxes with your overall nutrition strategy because we're just not giving ourselves the opportunity to do that. So taking another look, like if you're struggling, if you're having to eat all of these like other foods that have all this added protein or added fiber, like if you're having to like really get super creative with all this stuff in order to make the numbers work, then it is worth taking another look at what are the targets that I'm trying to aim for, and do those even make sense for me? Like, are those even accurate for my needs or for my goals? And in our current era of a lot of like weight loss medications being so popular, a lot of people are taking, GLP-1s, whether it's Ozempic or any of the other ones that are on the market, in that like the, again, overarching nutrition strategy for healthy weight loss with this is to make sure that you're getting enough protein, right? And because people have a lower appetite as a result of taking the medication, then it's like, okay, we are going to be eating fewer calories. We want to make sure that we are not deficient in protein, because that's going to lead to more loss of lean mass as part of the weight loss process, which is what we don't want. We want to keep as much muscle as possible, really emphasize improving body composition by reducing body fat percentage, losing more weight from fat than from muscle. So we do want to have a smart nutrition approach here. But like, again, if the medication is reducing someone's appetite to the point where they are malnourished, right? They are not able to get in enough of the things that they need to be a healthy person, then that might be too much of the medication, right? Like, and I know people want quick results. I know we want fast weight loss. I know we want to, get to the end of this journey as quickly as possible and just focus on maintaining and all of this stuff. But like, if someone is starving and losing weight very quickly and eating very little, and like weight is coming off them so fast and lean mass is coming off of them so fast, and I know that there's been concerns around loss of bone density, around like loss of like not getting enough micronutrients and things like that. So I want people to just stop and think a little bit. Does this need to be as quick as possible, right? Does this weight loss need to be as rapid as I can get it? Can I find a little bit more balance, meet a little bit more in the middle to still meet my nutrition goals as best as possible, still think about the quality of my diet, supplement appropriately if needed with different things, so that I come out of this weight loss process actually a healthier person, rather than someone who now has like depleted their lean mass, depleted their bone density. Like, I don't know. Is that really doing anything? So just some considerations if you are struggling, again, whether it's related to being on a weight loss medication or you're just tracking, for whatever reason, either, trying to get enough of the right things or trying to stay within a calorie restriction, whatever that might be. But if you're having a hard time and you're struggling, then these are just a couple things that we want to think about. All right. And of course, if you do need some help with your nutrition strategy, I would love to be the one to help you. Whether you are training for a race right now, you've got a big event on the calendar, or maybe you're in your off season, you just came off of a race and you just want to like reset, reshift, get some, figure out all this nutrition stuff, before you start training for your next event, then this is exactly what I do. I have a couple different program options depending on what exactly you're looking for help with. For nutrition support, I have the Fueled Runner program. So this is a program where you get my step-by-step guide, exactly how I work with clients one-on-one to create a personalized nutrition strategy that is based on your goals, based on your needs, and how to put that personalized plan together that is adaptable for the different phases of training you go through. And so if you're looking for nutrition coaching, nutrition guidance, and the Field Runner program is a perfect fit. If you want a combination of run and nutrition coaching, if you're looking for that all-in-one, one-stop shop type of program, then I have the Fuel Train Recover Club. So that includes both nutrition and run coaching. And then, of course, I do also have some limited one-on-one spots for coaching. I take just a couple of runners every season to work with me one-on-one. And that is a fully customized program. You get everything. We even test your genes to figure out the best nutrition strategy for you. So if you're looking for help, then go check out the link in the show notes. You can find links to all of the different ways that we can work together. And I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. All right, that's it. How did we do for time? I think we did all right. A little bit of a quicker one. So yeah, we'll see you back here next week. Bye for now. On this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.